All right, guys, about that time. Chris Brooks here with you for another Friday night edition of the Gridiron Show. Happy to be with you. As always, brought to you by Capital Ortho. Remember to wear the hat tonight. CapitalOrtho.com. I'm looking at scores as we get this thing started. Also by Sound and Communications, that's SoundcomAV.com. I appreciate Keith at Soundcom. Country Please and Sausage and Country Meat Packers in Florence. Appreciate you guys down there. By the Rogue in Jackson, have one of my favorite shirts on now, a hoodie. Actually, a Cowboy Country Club hoodie, if you want to know the name of it, from the Rogue. Softest hoodie I've ever owned. Appreciate you, Luke. And also brought to you by Malone Roofing Services, ecmalone.com. I'm happy to have them part of the show. Let's get right to some of this. I want to knock out a couple of things tonight, if you don't mind. And yeah, I've got my hand on the board here and also on the mouse as we roll through some scores while we do a show. I had a chance to catch pieces of 3 games tonight. I started out just a different night, not necessarily a game of the week kind of night, but just a chance to see several different teams, several different players. And I've been to MRA several times, but Park Lane was in town, wanted to see them real quick. So caught a quarter of that, ran over to St. Andrews here, and I stayed in the Metro Jackson area tonight. Going to try and get down to the coast one weekend and one Friday night, and try and go up north one Friday night. The next 2 weekends, hopefully I can make that work. But then also left St. Andrews and Pisgah, their game, rode out to the second half of Brandon Petal. This is what I want to do tonight. We'll get into some of those games, especially the Brandon Petal game. This power ranking that I put out on Wednesday of the top 25 teams in the state, at least the top 25 that I believe. A lot of it's based off strength of schedule and computer ratings and all those things. So it's going to be heavy on teams that play difficult schedules. So it's going to be heavy on teams that are larger for the most part. But we'll go down that and we'll go down our list of top 10 teams and how they did tonight. Okay. As always, see if I can set this up. I don't think I have it set up at the moment for you guys to send me messages. So hang with me real quick while I get that thing set up. So that as you message the show, you will see your messages appear on the screen, and bam, there they are. One already in here. All right, let's get to some of this real quick. About a 20-minute show usually on Friday nights. It depends on how many people. I'm looking in the little chat here with the messages. It depends on how many people we have that are part of it. So we'll see where we go. Right off the top, West Point wins big tonight. And several of these, they weren't close games tonight, like the West Point game in particular. They're big winners over, I'll pull up all these real quick so I can go through them as quick as possible. Bear with me here real quick. You ever start doing something and then you can't remember? There we go. Looking for the like button. Now we're ready to go. West Point was a big winner tonight. They went and look, I think that's the number 1 team in the state. I don't think there's any doubt. They beat Tupelo. Now, Tupelo brought their, as far as I know, if you're in Tupelo and you know this for sure, quarterback was back tonight. So I assume that gives you J.J. Hill back in the backfield and should have made you guys, more dangerous than you've been. Ben B, appreciate you, dude. Thanks for tuning in. But West Point was at Lafayette, or they played home against Lafayette, and they were big winners tonight. See if I can find that final score. I had it here. I was late getting back in the studio from that Brandon and Petal game, but in my defense, I had a difficult decision on the way home. Do I get home earlier and prepare for this, or do I stop by Popeyes and get 3 pieces of chicken? So, I did what you're supposed to do. I stopped by Popeyes and got some chicken on the way to the house. Thus, I'm a little bit late. West Point 41-6 over Lafayette tonight, so they're big winners. West Point continues to roll on. Tupelo with Hernando, that actually was a little closer than I thought. And hey, no offense or disrespect to Hernando. It's just what I think of Tupelo with their quarterback. And again, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. With their quarterback expected back tonight, I thought their offense would be more dangerous. Tupelo wins 35-17, 316 yards to 196. So Hernando hung in there with a Tupelo team that I think is probably the most talented team in the state. But West Point gets the nod as the number one team because, you win head to head, you get that. Regardless if Tupelo's quarterback was playing or not. But Tupelo gets another win. They're still safe in that number 2 spot. And after that, MRA, look, I'm at that MRA Park Lane first quarter. That game was 28-0 quick. And it ended up being a relatively close score. What was the final? 35-14. But it was 28-0 quick. And I know that Park Lane team is really good. I got some pushback this week. This is the first ranking I put out where I mixed up the MHSAA and the MAIS teams. Do I really believe MRA is the number 3 team in the state? Yeah, 100%. The computer numbers spit that out. If you look at the teams that MRA has played and the strength of schedule they've played to be 6-1 now 7-1, yeah, I mean absolutely. Park Lane was the only team to beat Choctaw County last year. Choctaw County went 14-1, won a state title. The only blemish was a loss to Park Lane. And I bring that up because they literally brought back that entire team. Park Lane is very, very good this year. Already have a win over Jackson Prep. And when I was there for that first quarter, MRA they dominated that game. That's a very good team Herbert Davis has. He and his staff do as good a job as anybody doing it. So they get a win tonight over Park Lane. That brings us to Picayune. They pick up a win tonight. Who did they have? Hancock. I know I had that score in here somewhere. I'll track it down here in a minute. Then that brings us to number 5, Oxford. Maybe game of the night, and I'm going to get to these messages here in just a second. Might have to put my glasses on for some of them, or I can just enlarge the screen. Bam, that fixed that problem. Germantown was up big, and I say big. They were up 2 touchdowns on Oxford in the second half, and it sounded like on the radio they were in command of that game. And I'm listening to Jake Wimberly while I'm at the Brandon game. I'm listening to him on my headphones. Sounded like Germantown had the inside track on that region. They're up 2 scores, and then I pull up the score when I get home. Oxford comes back, and they beat Germantown 43-42. That's a huge win for Oxford as they stay. Where did they come in? Number 5 in our power ranking. Germantown was number 10. That was a great ball game, but Oxford, in maybe the game of the night, they come back and win the night. Ocean Springs was off. I haven't found that Columbia score yet. Still tracking that down. They play Tylertown tonight. I'm going to get to this top 10 real quick, guys, and then I'm going to get to some of these messages. Petal comes into Brandon, and I got a little heat this week because leaving Brandon at 12. Look, actually, Brandon's top 10, if you just look at the computer models and the RPI numbers, Brandon's played a killer schedule. And even tonight, they lose to Petal, but that's a matchup of number 8 versus number 12. Petal goes on the road. They win 27-21. And I'll be brief with this. Brandon's still struggling offensively, even though they have the 21 points. They had to work for it. It's one of those deals where their quarterback, Sladen Shack's having to work. The offense isn't clicking, lots of 3 and outs. They had some explosive plays, some big plays to get to those 21 points, but it's still been a struggle. And it's been like that for them this year. Not sure what all of that is. Some of that's been injuries. When you lose Tyler Robinson for a chunk of the season like they did. They struggled. Now, Petal is good defensively, so give some credit there. They're a big defensive tackle that's headed to Texas. Thanks for that, Samuel. That kid was a stud tonight. I believe it's Corey Wells. Um, that is a massive human being. I'll have some pictures of him later on that I'll put up after the show. But he dominates the interior at the line of scrimmage. Huge kid. I was impressed with that guy. But Petal comes in and beats Brandon 27-21. Their quarterback, Caden Belton, 10 of 18, 140 and a touchdown. Also had a rushing touchdown. Malcolm, I believe that's Foreigner Net. 5 catches, 17 yards at a touchdown. He also returned the opening kick of the game, 97 yards. Bam, took that to the house. So, I mean, Brandon just, they're everything for them this year has been a fight. But if they get into the playoffs, and in particular in the South, I'm telling you guys, in 7A, wide open. And it's kind of funny. I had a chance to bump into Toby Collins this week. Coach Jake Bramlett down at Ocean Springs for the volleyball state championship game. So I just had a chance to talk to a lot of coaches, in particular this week. And 7A's, it's wide open. We'll see what goes on with Tupelo with their quarterback coming back. But the playoffs are going to be fun once we get there. Now let's get to Gulfport. Gulfport had a convincing win tonight. They beat, who was that? St. Martin, I believe it was. No, excuse me, West Harrison. Now, I'm not sure if Jordan Stapleton is back for West Harrison yet. Stud running back for those guys, big time player. He's been out. But Gulfport wins that one by a final 42-14. Maybe Gulfport's your best team in the South. I mean, they came in number 9 in our power rankings, but already a win over Ocean Springs. It could be them. And then that rounds out the top 10. Let me get to some of these messages real quick. And then we will tell you what, some of these I'm just now realizing you learn things as you go. And I am recognizing on the screen, at least I can't see them all. Bradley Greer, appreciate you, man. North Panola 20-14 over Independence in overtime. Hey, that's a big win for North Panola up in the north. Leak rolls again. Did you see what Otani did? The dude effect. Yeah, Otani, if you were at a high school game tonight, probably, not even probably, the greatest Major League Baseball playoff game ever. Guy started the game on the bump, 6 innings, 10 strikeouts, 1 hit, no runs, and also managed to go yard 3 times. Unbelievable player. Unbelievable player. Bradley Greer score on League Central. I'll track that down here in just a minute. JT Speed Oxford, the top 410 team. That's big time to come back on that Germantown team because I know Germantown's good. Coach Mitchell's done a great job there. They could do something in the playoffs. But that one, that's got to sting because it seems like they had that game from just listening to the scores come in tonight from Jake. Apparently, Oxford flashed the stadium lights before Germantown had a kick for the win. Wow. Okay, I had to check up on that, Ben. Appreciate you, man. This from Samuel Columbia. Yeah, 54-30. Columbia is so good. I don't really know where to rank them. I saw them beat Hartfield right out of the gate when Hartfield was especially healthy. And at that point, Hartfield's really good. When they're full strength, they're just kind of thin this year, but they can play. And then since then, Columbia has a win over this Pedal team we're talking about that rolls into Brandon and gets a win tonight. Lamar, Brandon going to make some noise. The season's not over for Brandon. Lamar, yeah, South Jones. I saw they lost to North Pike, and correct me, was North Pike 1-6 going into that game? Which records don't mean a ton at this point because some teams some coaches believe the non-region part of the schedule should be brutal. And then it helps them when they get into region play. So maybe North Pike was doing that. But South Jones was number 25 in our power rankings for the whole state this week, and they rolled into that game 7-0. This from Thomas, yeah, Lamar. Brandon won't make it out of South. Now, they should be good. I'm guessing it's going to be Petal, Oak Grove, Brandon, and Northwest Rankin. I need to get that Northwest Rankin score. And I tell you what, while we're talking here, Northwest Rankin played Pearl, and that's big because Pearl is the team that would also have a chance to get out of Region 3 and 7A. While Northwest Rankin wins, but that was 33-29 is your final, as I like that on X and repost it. Wow. That's a huge win for Northwest Rankin to get into the playoffs, or not to get in now, but to give you a leg up in the run for the playoffs. Like I said, looks like it's going to be Brandon. Looks like it's going to be Petal, Oak Grove. Petal's already beat Oak Grove. Then you're Brandon. I think Brandon plays Oak Grove next week. Brandon already has a win over Northwest Rankin. And Pearl at this point would be the fifth team outside looking in. What else do we have here? South Panola 52-26 over Saltillo. North Pike 21 over South Jones 5 first win for North Pike. Yeah, I'm still having a hard time believing that score. They were 0-6. Okay. I knew the record was bad. Senatobia 43, Rosa Fort 6. Senatobia wins big tonight, but I've been wanting to get out and see Rosa Fort. They have a couple of kids that can really play. Brandon offensively, too, depending on Tyson. If you were at that game tonight, everything, like I said, it's just a struggle. First options aren't there very often. Slade and Shack is having to move around a lot. And look, this is me from the sidelines taking pictures. You can't see a lot what's going on from there. But it looked like offensive line wise, they really struggled tonight. Not much time to work with. And if you're struggling up front, there's not much you can do as a play caller to figure things out, no matter who you have in the backfield. But especially the second half, it looked like they really struggled on the offensive line. Brandon, that is. Horn Lake 35-20 over DeSoto Central. It's a big win for Horn Lake. As I believe, do they stay undefeated, RT, or is that one loss or undefeated on the year? Madison Central 45-14 over Murrah. Hey, Madison Central's a team. I know Madison Central's very young at the start of this season. So maybe we get in the playoffs and they're able to make a run here as they get a little more experience as we go. Yeah, JT Speed, the Hernando loss doesn't look as bad. It doesn't. Not after the score of that Tupelo game. And look, and that's the thing about these power rankings. Who you lose to and how you lose those games, it matters almost as much as who you've beaten and the wins that are on the schedule. And like I said earlier, it's heavy on strength of schedule. Louisville beat Gentry down. Can they come out of the North? Yeah, I would expect Louisville is still the team to beat in the North. Now they have competition this year. Kosciuszko, I think, is good. Oh my gosh, there's one more team up there I think could give them a run. Shannon could give them a run, but particularly Kosciuszko, just because of their quarterback. I think that kid can really go. Brandon, biggest loss was losing Sam. Look, they've had a lot of turnover this year. That's without a doubt. And they've had some change there. I still think that can be a team. I mean, we're running out of time here, but that can be a team that you get to the playoffs. I know this. If let's say they get in the playoffs as a 3 or a 4, okay? Let's say they get in as a 3 and they have to go to on the road. I wouldn't want to be the Region 4 number 2 seed and to draw Brandon out of the gate. Brandon still has players. And we'll see if they can get things figured out. But that would be a tough draw for a home 2 seed to pull Brandon in on the road. Tupelo was sloppy. Watch that game. Hernando does have talent. Yeah, and I usually go back. So many of these games are online now and on YouTube. I'll go back in the morning. And after I do photos tonight, I'll go through a lot of these and see what everybody looked like. Let's see what else we have here. If I have time to go through a few more. I know JA won big, but that's the thing with a lot of these academies late. The way they did their districting this year, there's going to be a ton of huge blowouts. Like even as good as Park Lane is, MRA was different on the field tonight. JA is playing St. Joe, and it's almost a case where you can name the score with some of these matchups. You know, I think MRA or JA, maybe MRA is Simpson coming up. It's just you're talking about significantly smaller schools. Starkville, I want to find that before I get out of here. See if I can find a score from that Starkville game. And look, and I'll tell you guys this, in the North, there are other teams. The team that has a chance to run away with it is Tupelo. If their quarterback gets going, assuming he was back tonight, and Thomas, you tell me if I'm wrong, there wasn't their quarterback back tonight. So that should have moved JJ Hill back to the backfield. So you've got two SEC backs back there now and an SEC DB under center. That's the team that could be very, very difficult. But apart from that, I'm just telling you, like in traditional years, like that Germantown team is good. Oxford's very good. Starkville could knock some people off. It could be more open in the North if Tupelo comes back to the pack. The South is wide open. Columbia Academy beat Wayne Academy earlier. Appreciate that, Samuel. Yeah, he was back, looked rusty. I figured that. Starkville won 28-7. Appreciate that, Brandon. Brandon Shields getting it done. He's all over the state covering games. Appreciate what all Brandon does. See who else here we have if I want to get to it. Grenada, Louisville. Trying to see what that score was. If I have time to get to a few of these, I might not. I really want to go over the top 10 mainly. And, we can do another show for some of these others. But I didn't have as much time tonight. Usually I try to give myself an hour to go over scores and to be prepared. I mean, I had about 15 minutes tonight, so this was just going to be a little bit of a quick run through the top 10. Real quick, back to our power rankings. Appreciate all the traffic. Look, that graphic, and I know how to do this, or I don't know how to do this, but I know I can. I could have put that graphic on the screen. And when I look down, I'm looking at myself on this broadcast. There's some things I can do with that I don't understand how to do. I could bring that graphic in and we could talk about it. It's a power ranking. I'm not necessarily rewarding best records. It's who I think are the best teams in the state. And I try to back it up with computer RPI numbers. That graphic had over 150,000 views in 2 days. So thanks for all the sharing of that and all of our social media feeds. If you guys don't mind, invite other people to follow us. We always take the follows. It's great for us. It helps the traffic, helps us do more coverage. But if you don't mind, thanks for the reposts, the retweets, and all of that stuff that you guys do, sharing that stuff. See if I have anything else here. But West Point, Tupelo, MRA, Picayune, Oxford. That's your top 5. That I was going to say that wasn't going to change. I might change. Picayune's power number is actually lower than everybody else, but it's Picayune. So you give them a lot of benefit of the doubt. But Oxford tonight, that's a big win over a Germantown team that I know is really good. Maybe I could change something there. I need to look at the numbers first. Ocean Springs was off. Columbia, big winner again. Petal, big win tonight at Brandon. Gulfport, a big win. Germantown, that's a tough loss when you were up 2 touchdowns in the 4th. Starkville, Brandon, I still feel good about where I had Brandon. Now they lost, so they'll go down. Now they're 3-4. One of those losses is to the best team anybody's played all year, an Alabama high school team. They went out of state to play. But, I mean, they played toe for toe with Petal. They lose 27-21. They gave up an opening kickoff return, 97 yards. That'll get you beat. But they can play with Petal, any day of the week. So I feel justified in that ranking. And JA, look, JA is difficult to rank. I know more about MRA. JA schedule's weak. but they have as many as 7 potential SEC football players on that team. They're not as deep as MRA, but JA has a ton of top level talent. Grenada, I have them a little lower in our power ranking than just the regular poll that Brandon and I do. I think that's reflective mainly of the strength of schedule. Louisville at 15, Oak Grove. I mean, even Oak Grove with the losses they've had. Excuse me, D'Iberville picks up a big win tonight, and then Oak Grove, Clinton. These are schools that have some losses. They're more middle of the pack of 7A, but they're still capable of beating most anybody in 7A. Madison Central, West Harrison, and then Warren Central, Northwest Rankin, Park Lane. Park Lane might get bumped out after the loss to MRA, but Park Lane's a really good team. Ron Rushing's done a great job as the head coach there. Kosciuszko will still be in here, and then South Jones will bounce out after their loss to North Pike. I'll do another one of these Wednesday. We'll do our normal rankings on Monday, and then I'll do this, which is very different. And like teams like Hernando might jump in there. Those 7A teams up way north, Hernando, DeSoto Central, their strength of schedule numbers are bad. That's what kept them out of this week. Can't do a show without A&W root beer. Macomb 42-7. Macomb, Takivia, Macomb could easily bump in there. Macomb was actually the highest ranked team in the computer rankings that didn't get in. They were 22. South Jones bumped them out. Macomb was actually in the graphic at one point, and then South Jones ended up bumping them out and moved them in. So a good chance you see Macomb in there. Jackson Academy is one of the top running backs in the state, Eric Beasley. Yeah, he had a monster game last week. Had a chance to see him play. I'm assuming he did tonight. People understand it's hard to make a top 10, even hard to do a top 25. Yeah, it is. And, the truth is I spent 2 days on that because I want to be, and not that I do care about the fans and I appreciate all the interest we get from you guys. Been doing this a long time. I really think about two things. I think about those coaches that I know, and I try not to be biased, but I try to be fair. So I probably spend more time than I should, but I also think of those players. So you try to do a good job on it. I think those 25 teams, and yeah, it does end up being top heavy in classification, but that's what a power ranking is. It's who I think are the best teams in a lot of these middle 7A teams. A team like maybe a Choctaw County could jump in there. Their strength of schedule hurts them. If that's 3A school, it's hard for those schools to jump in on something like this just because the size of the school, and that's a mountain to climb when you're dealing with a 7A school that might have 1,500 to 2,000 students, and maybe your high school might have 300 or 400 students. It's very different. But I'll put another one of those out Wednesday. Never satisfy everybody with the top 25. And I don't get to the coast. And yes, we were literally 26 last week. Now we're bumping down to 27. You won't be bumped down. I need to get up north and see a couple of those teams. I need to get down to the coast, see some of those. But you do the best you can with YouTube and these broadcasts and try to keep up to date on what everybody's doing. A couple of things you can do this weekend. If you have top performers, make sure you send that to me. We'll make sure we get it up online. Brandon Shields does a great job with that. So make sure we're getting top performers. Anything newsworthy, your players, always send that stuff to us. We try to do something with it. And then we'll have the rankings out Monday. Games to watch, power rankings on Wednesday. We only have 2 weeks of regular season for some of these classes and 3 for 7A. We're getting down to it. The weather's supposed to be cool next Friday night. I will actually need this hoodie. I believe the temperature is going to dip into the 50s, before the end of those games, 9, 10 o'clock at night. So we'll get into football weather. Predictions for tomorrow's games. Who all plays tomorrow? I'll do that real quick, and then we will close shop on that one. Congrats again to the Dodgers, man. I'm a Mets fan, so not good for us. some of these scores. I know Ole Miss has the Georgia game at 2:30. That's a big one. How about Lewis? No, not Louisville, Louisville beats Miami 24-21 tonight, and Minnesota beats Nebraska 24-6. I hate these schools playing on Friday nights. Friday nights should be sacred for high school football. This is nonsense. Some of these is there anything greedier than the people that run college football? Hate, excuse me, hate Friday night college football. Um, that's what you get, Miami, for playing on a Friday night. If you're playing on a Friday night as a college team, your conference is, no, I don't want to say it's garbage or not real, because Nebraska's, Minnesota is in the Big Ten. I mean, those are, I hate it. I hate Friday night. Ole Miss 5 and Georgia 9 tomorrow. That could be. Did Chris have a big night for UL? How about that, man? Yeah, I don't like Ole Miss on the road at Georgia. Ole Miss has actually beat Georgia 2 out of the last 3 years. So it's not like it's impossible, but I'm going on the road. And look, and the truth is, I'm not a huge fan of Georgia. All of this new NIL money, if you follow that stuff, it has changed the landscape. Georgia ain't Georgia, and Alabama ain't Alabama. They had all of these advantages in recruiting. If you had a good machine to bring in players, you were so much further ahead. And that ain't the case anymore. Not the case at all. So Ole Miss has a shot at Georgia tomorrow. Can't wait for that one. What are the other only ones I really care about are the SEC games? If I can track them down here real quick. You got Ole Miss and Georgia. LSU Vandy. How about Vandy? 5-1, ranked 17. That's 11 o'clock. Get you started early in the day. Oklahoma, South Carolina's not bad. A&M and Arkansas. I don't know about that one. State plays Florida, 3:15. That's a big game for State. They're trying to get to 6 wins, and this is one they need. The early season win over Arizona State was huge to get to 6. Tomorrow is a huge step to make that happen. If they can get Florida, maybe they can knock off somebody else. They're significantly better from last year, State that is. Which look, the NIL I think is good. I think players being paid is good anyway. But without a doubt, you can't argue it's created parity. And look how much better State got last year to this year. Last year, they couldn't even stay on the field with some of these schools. And this year's a different story. But tomorrow's a big one if you're a State fan. Texas, Kentucky, I forgot. Tennessee, Alabama tomorrow night. And then Missouri, Auburn. I'll watch some of that. But that Tennessee, Alabama game in particular. Ole Miss, Georgia. I'd love to do the pick Ole Miss thing, but I don't do that. You can't pick Ole Miss in the game, but they got a good shot at it. We'll see. Mainly because I don't think Georgia's that good. Their quarterback has struggled this year, so we'll see if hopefully he can have another bad game tomorrow, and Ole Miss can stay undefeated and maybe improve on that number 5 ranking. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up tonight. Longer than I anticipated, a little over 30 minutes. Ahmad Hardy's going to run them over. Man, Brett, I'll never understand the Ahmad Hardy thing. I can remember talking to him and his I believe it was his dad, and he had nothing as a senior at Lawrence County and just begging schools for an offer. And he got some late, but I never understood it. He looked to me, and look, I have all the respect in the world for college scouts. It's difficult. And the best ones I know will tell you often, man, it's flipping a coin. But that kid was great at Lawrence County. He's one of those kids, if you saw him play, if I knew what his 40 time was, and I only know that it's not 4.8, right? If you saw him play and you knew he could run something around a 4.5 ish, he was a no doubt stud. Now all of a sudden he's one of the best running backs in the country, and that kid has earned it. But big day tomorrow with college football. I'll be working on a lot of high school stuff all day tomorrow. Always appreciate you guys. I still have some big news coming up here in the next couple of weeks that I can't wait to get out there, but I can't do it yet. But you guys have a good night. Okay, top performers, make sure we get all that stuff. Thanks for checking out our stuff. Brett, I know you did, dude. There was never a doubt he was going to be special. But I appreciate you guys. Thanks to all of our sponsors. And we'll get to this again next week. How about it? Y'all have a good week. Enjoy your weekend. Talk to you later.